The second part of this trading week is going to be as eventful as the first one. What key economic reports are scheduled for release in the coming days? To find it out, watch our video calendar on InstaForex TV. First of all, we need to pay attention to the labor market data from Australia. Traders are rather cautious about the Australian currency. They refrain from buying it ahead of the expected rate cut by the country's central bank. Reportedly, the RBA is closely monitoring the employment data when assessing the economic conditions. Tomorrow, the National Bureau of Statistics will release the employment change report, and analysts are predicting that it will show a slight increase of 15,300 people, while the unemployment rate is expected to remain unchanged at 5.3%. If so, the AUD/USD pair may come under bearish pressure. However, the Australian dollar will probably recoup losses on Friday, as the industrial production data from China is expected to provide some positive signs. The forecast suggests that China's industrial output volume increased by 5% in annual terms versus the previous rise of 4.4%. Why does it matter for the Australian dollar? The thing is that Australia is the main supplier of raw materials to China, so the Chinese production statistics have a significant impact on the Australian economic performance. In fact, the economy of China is also dependent on its industrial sector, as it accounts for 40% of the total GDP volume. Interestingly, the report on economic growth for the third quarter will come out along with the industrial production data on Friday. The risk of a slowdown in the second biggest economy remains the matter of concerns. Probably concerns will intensify on Friday, as the Chinese gross domestic product is expected to grow at a slower annual pace of 6.1% versus the previous 6.2%. At the same time, the quarterly increase is predicted at 1.5%. If these expectations are confirmed, the risk-aversion sentiment will rise, and the demand for safe-haven assets, including the Japanese yen, will increase. Remarkably, in the run-up to the publication of China's GDP data, the inflation report will see the light in Japan. However, it is unlikely to change the investor sentiment. Market participants will be focusing on the Chinese statistics. On top of the above-mentioned events, traders will pay attention to the following data. Tomorrow, the Bank of England governor will deliver a speech at an event in the John Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, Boston. Besides, the retail sales report from the UK will influence the pound exchange rate. As for the news from the United States, FOMC members Charles Evans and Michael Bowman will provide their comments. On Friday, the colleagues will express an opinion on the US economic conditions and the appropriateness of a rate cut. However, the pound sterling will attract most of attention. On October 18, the European Council summit will be held, where the policymakers will provide their final decision on Brexit issue. You were watching Forex Trader Calendar on InstaForex TV channel with me, Kate Stichina. We wish you profitable deals.